Very good morning to all of you. And this is the lecture 2 for chapter 1, physical world. In the previous lecture, we have studied about the physics concepts and the technological advancement in physics, as well as various other phenomena that actually help us to study physics with a deeper understanding. So all those topics we have covered in the previous lecture. We have also learned about the scientific method, the very important part of the previous lecture, that how a theory becomes a law and what are the steps that are involved in claiming that a theory is a law. So all those steps we have discussed. And this chapter, we will be dealing with the fundamental forces in nature. All right. So let's start. The fundamental forces in nature. We all know that in our surroundings, a lot of forces are involved. They're involved the gravitational force, frictional force, elastic force, spring force, mechanical force. A lot of forces are there. Muscular force. All right. So out of these forces, there are some forces which are fundamental in nature. All right. The spelling for fundamental, it should be AL. So it has to be like this. There are certain forces which are known as fundamental forces, and these forces are actually making all other forces. Because of these forces, there exist different other forces. So those forces are known as derived forces because these forces have been derived out from these fundamental forces. Okay, let me stop it for a while. Someone is asking something. There are some fundamental forces in nature, and because of these forces, all other forces which are surrounding us, they have been derived out of these fundamental forces. All right. So there is one thing out of which other things have been derived, just like that. So these fundamental forces, they are the source for all other forces which are existing in nature. All right. So there are forces which we see in our day-to-day life, like muscular force, frictional force, compression and elongation of strings, fluid force, gas pressure, electric and magnetic force, interatomic forces, intermolecular forces. All these forces, they are known as derived forces. Why so? Because they have been originated due to a few fundamental forces that are existing in nature. So all those forces that I'm talking about, they are known as derived force because they have been derived from some fundamental forces. Only there are 4 fundamental forces in nature. All right. So let's talk about those 4 fundamental forces, which are the sources for these forces to exist in nature. So there are 4 forces. One is the gravitational force. This is the fundamental force. And because of gravitational force, lot other forces are there which have been derived. Second one is the electromagnetic force. It is a fundamental force. And the third one is strong nuclear force. This is also one example of fundamental force. And we are having weak nuclear force. So all these 4 forces, they are known as fundamental forces. Fundamental forces means that these are existing as it is. All right. They do not require any other force to derive themselves. But other forces, they have been derived from these fundamental forces. All right. So there are 4 kind of fundamental forces that are existing in nature. One is the gravitational force. Second one is the electromagnetic force. Third one is the strong nuclear force. And fourth one is the weak nuclear force. All right. So all these forces, they make various other forces which are existing in our surroundings and which are existing in the nature. All right. These are the sources for other forces that are existing around us. All right. Now we have to learn about these fundamental forces one by one. So let's take the gravitational force. The first fundamental force that we need to discuss is the gravitational force. And in your class 9, you have studied that what is gravitational force. It is the force of attraction between any two objects in this universe. So every object in this universe, it is attracting another object. And why so? Because every object is having some mass. So this force, it exists by the virtue of masses of the objects. And this is a universal force. Universal force means that every object in this complete universe, it experiences this gravitational force. All right. So this force exists on all the objects that are existing in this universe. That's why it is known as universal force. If we go to moon, we'll be having the gravitational force over there, although the magnitude may get decreased because of the gravitational, all right, because of the gravitational acceleration, because of the acceleration due to gravity is different at different planets. So we may feel it in a different way, all right, but it exists all over the universe. This is the formula for gravitational force, that is equal to F is equal to G m1 m2 upon r square. All right, this is the formula for the gravitational force. F is equal to G m1 m2 upon r square. So this force is directly proportional to the product of the masses of the two bodies and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. All right. So that's why this gravitational force, it is directly proportional to the product of the masses of the two bodies and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. See, this gravitational force, it exists equally on any object, whether it is smaller in mass or it is very larger in mass. The falling apple, okay, it also experiences a gravitational force. Similarly, the planets that are revolving around the sun, they also experience the gravitational force. The gravitational force causes an apple to fall from the tree as well as the planets to revolve around the sun. So it is because of this gravitational force, something falls down, and it is because of this gravitational force, all the planets, they are revolving around the sun. And this we will be learning in our chapter number 8. Chapter 8 is gravitation only in your class 11 syllabus. So we'll be learning about it a lot. Then we'll be dealing with chapter number 11. And the most important thing that you have to keep in mind that this gravitational force is the weakest force among all the fundamental forces. So among all the fundamental forces, this gravitational force is the weakest one. All right. It is the weakest force. Please remember this thing. I have told you about 4 fundamental forces. All right. Out of these 4 fundamental forces, the gravitational force is the weakest force. All right. It's a universal force. The definition goes like that: it is the force of attraction between any two objects in this universe. And this exists because of the masses of the object, directly proportional to the masses of the object, and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. All right. So this is something about gravitational force, which is one of the fundamental forces, and it is the weakest among all the fundamental forces. Now we need to discuss the second fundamental force, that is electromagnetic force. All right. So the electromagnetic force, it is the force between the charged particles. All right. We know this thing, that the charges, they have a force between them. The unlike charges, they attract each other. Positive attracts negative, and the like charges, they repel each other. All right. So this is the electric force. All right. The force between the charged particles is known as the electric force. And also in our class 10th, we have studied this thing, that when the charges are in motion, they produce magnetic force. When the charges, they are flowing, a current carrying wire, it produces the magnetic field. That's what we have studied in class 10th. All right. So the charges in motion means the flow of charge. So when the charge flows, current is produced, and current produces a magnetic field around the conductor through which it is flowing. So that's why the charges in motion, they produce magnetic force, and together this electric force and magnetic force is known as electromagnetic force. All right. And this electromagnetic force is also fundamental force in nature. You can see the pictorial representation. All right. This plus plus, they repel each other. Plus minus, they attract each other. And minus minus, they repel each other. All right. So this is electric force. That is the force that is acting between the charged particles. You can see the unlike charges, they attract each other, while the like charges, they repel each other. All right. So this is the electric force that is acting between the charged particles. And in order to understand the magnetic field, let's take this example that we are having a current carrying circular loop. I is the current flowing through it, and we know this thing. We have studied in our class 10 that whenever current is flowing across a conductor, then it produces a magnetic field, capital B, around it. So B is the symbol for magnetic field and I is the symbol for electric current. So you can write it like this. A current carrying wire, it generates magnetic field around it, giving rise to electromagnetism. All right. Now we need to learn about the third fundamental force, and that third fundamental force is strong nuclear force. All right. We know this thing that what is a nucleus? Nucleus is the positively charged dense structure present at the center of an atom, and a nucleus, it contains the protons and the neutrons. Inside the nucleus, two components are there. One is the proton and other one is the neutron. All right. Now, the force of attraction between the nucleons. What are nucleons? Nucleons are the constituent of the nucleus, that are the protons and the neutrons. So these protons and neutrons, they are bounded together in the nucleus with some force, and that attractive force is known as strong nuclear force. I'm telling you again, the nucleons are the constituent of the nucleus. So whatever inside the nucleus, they are known as nucleons. So they are the protons and the neutrons, and these protons and neutrons, they are bounded together with the help of some force, and that force is known as strong nuclear force. And this force is charge independent. It means that it acts equally between the proton and a proton, neutron and a neutron, and a proton and a neutron. All right. So the proton, they are attracted and bounded together with the help of the strong nuclear force. Similarly, a proton and a neutron, and similarly, the neutron, they are bounded together. All right. So that force which holds up the nucleons together inside the nucleus is known as strong nuclear force. All right. And it is the strongest fundamental force. Please keep this thing in mind. The weakest one was the gravitational force, and it is the strongest fundamental force that is existing in this nature, the strong nuclear force. All right. And recent discoveries, they have proved this thing, that the protons and the neutrons, they are further divided, they can further be divided into small particles. They are known as quarks. It may be possible that this strong nuclear force is acting between the quarks also. All right. And they are bounded together inside the nucleus because of this strong nuclear force. Still, discoveries are going on, research is going on this quark, and they are still lagging some evident data in order to go through these things in detail. So maybe later on, when we'll be having some sufficient data, we'll be telling you about these things. But just an elementary idea to you that it is now believed that the protons and the neutrons, they are made up of quarks. All right. So this is nucleus. All right. And please, can you tell me this thing, that which atom structure is this? Please write it in the chat box. What is the atom for which the structure is being drawn? Name this atom, please. Lithium atom. This is the lithium atom, and it is the Bohr's model of lithium atom. All right. The nucleus is tightly bounded with a strong force of attraction between the protons and the neutrons, and the electrons, they revolve around the nucleus. So the force of attraction, that is between the nucleons, this is a new term to you, nucleons, all right? The constituent of the nucleus, the protons and the neutrons, that force is known as strong nuclear force, and it is the strongest fundamental force that is existing in this nature. All right, let's move towards the weak nuclear force. What is a weak nuclear force? We have to discuss it. This force generally appears only in certain nuclear processes, such as the radioactive decays, such as the beta decay or the alpha decay. So we know this thing, that there exists a phenomenon known as radioactivity. In radioactivity, what happens that the nucleus of certain elements, it becomes unstable. All right, and when it becomes unstable, they emit certain radiation, and the emission of spontaneous emission of the radiation from the elements whose nucleus is unstable is known as radioactivity. So during this, the beta decay of the nucleus, it emits an electron and an uncharged particle called the neutrino. So if beta decay is happening in the nucleus, then the nucleus emits an electron as well as an uncharged particle, and that particle is known as neutrino. So you can see this. So we are having hydrogen atom, isotope of hydrogen, it is tritium, and when beta decay happens to it, it becomes helium atom. All right. So this is the beta decay of nucleus. It is a weak nuclear force that is existing in certain nucleuses or in certain nuclei which are unstable. All right. It is a weak nuclear force. There may be alpha decay, there may be gamma decay. So this radioactivity process and the radioactive decays, they are of three types. One is alpha decay, other one is beta decay. The example is given to you. One is gamma decay. So about these, you will be studying in detail in your class 12th. When you will be going to class 12, you will be learning about this thing. There is one chapter that is known as nuclei. So in that nuclei, you will be dealing up with this alpha, beta, and gamma decay, and you will be writing up the equations to represent these alpha, beta, and gamma decays, as well as to predict up the elements which are formed by the alpha, beta, and gamma decay. All right. So in this class only, we need to learn about this, that what is weak nuclear force and how it functions. All right. Because the nucleus is unstable, that is, it is weak nuclear force. All right. Now, we need to do a comparison study between the four fundamental forces that we have studied. So we have studied about the gravitational force, we have studied about the electromagnetic force, we have studied about the strong nuclear force, and we have studied about the weak nuclear force. So let's make a table and compare all these forces. All right. So see this is our reference. Strong nuclear force is our reference. We will be calculating all other forces based on this reference only. All right. So this is our reference. It means if we give a value of 1 to strong nuclear force, all the other forces will be of this order compared to the strong nuclear force. All right. So this is our reference. You can see the relative strength. So if strong nuclear force is given a magnitude 1, then the electromagnetic force will be having a magnitude 10 to the power minus 2. It means it will be divided by 100. All right. So it is smaller than this one. The strong nuclear force is the strongest one. Electromagnetic force is smaller than the strong nuclear force, and the weak nuclear force is 10 to the power 13 times smaller than the strong nuclear force. So it will be 1 upon 10 to the power 13 of the strong nuclear force, and the gravitational force is 10 to the power 39 times smaller than strong nuclear force. All right. You can say the relative strength, it says that gravitational force is 10 to the power minus 39 times. It means 10 to the power minus 39 times smaller. All right. So when you multiply this 1 by 10 to the power minus 39, you'll be getting the approximate magnitude for the gravitational force. So strong nuclear force is the strongest one and it is the weakest one. All right, and now range. We need to learn about the range. Range means up to what distance this force can act. So the strong nuclear force, it is very short range force. All right, it can act only up to a distance of 10 to the power minus 15 meter. It means 0.0000014 times 0 and then 1, that much meter. All right, so it is very, very less range, short range force, very short range. The strong nuclear force is very short range force. The electromagnetic force, it has a infinite range. It means it can act up to infinite distance. All right, and the weak nuclear force, it acts at a very short range, that is of the order of 10 to the power minus 16 meter. All right, very short range. It means it has even lesser range than that of the strong nuclear force. All right, 10 to the power minus 16 it is, so even lesser than 10 to the power minus 15. So it is very short range. Weak nuclear force is very short range, and the gravitational force is of infinite range. It can be acting between bodies up to infinite distance. All right, you can see this. So which force is having the shortest range? It is the weak nuclear force. And which is the strongest one? Strongest is the strong nuclear force. And which is the weakest? It is gravitational force. And which is having the shortest range? It is the weak nuclear force, because it is having 10 to the power minus 16 meters. Now, among which objects it operates? The gravitational force, it acts between all the objects that are present in the universe. That's why it is known as universal force. Weak nuclear force, it acts among some elementary particles, particularly electron and the neutrino. Similarly, the electromagnetic force, it acts among the charged particles. And the strong nuclear force, it acts along the nucleons. Nucleons means the protons and the neutrons, which are present inside the nucleus. All right? All right or not? So I do hope that this table is quite clear to you. If still you are having some problem, I'm giving you time, please ask me. Strong nuclear force, it is the attractive force between the nucleons. See, the nucleus is there. This nucleus, it contains the protons and the neutrons. And these protons and the neutrons, they are bounded together inside the nucleus. And since they are bounded together, there must be some force that is acting to bound them up. That force, which are bounding the protons and the neutrons inside a nucleus, it is known as the strong nuclear force. All right? I hope it is clear. And this strong nuclear force, it is having a unique property that it do not depend on the charge of the nucleons, whether two positively charged particles are there, whether a positive and a neutral particle is there, or whether all two particles which are neutral in nature, it acts along them in the same manner. If it is acting between a proton and a proton, it will be the same. If it is acting between a neutron and a proton, it will be the same. And it is same along with when it is acting between proton and the neutron. All right. Although there may be some force of repulsion between the proton and the proton, that is a different case. But the strong nuclear force, it remains the same. Okay, let me take some other questions also. Some others have also. So in the next topic, we need to learn something about the conserved quantities. So there lies various quantities in physics which are conserved. And when we talk about this thing, that is quantity is conserved, it means this thing that this quantity is not changing with time. All right, it is conserved. Conserved means there is no change occurring in that. All right. So based on our knowledge of conserved quantities, we derive of various relations and we come to various conclusions when we deal about the concepts of physics. All right. So these are the physical quantities that remain constant in time, and that's why they are known as conserved quantities. Conserved means they are not changing at all. All right. For example, for a body under external force, the kinetic and potential energy change, but the total mechanical energy, it remains constant. you may have done a derivation for this in your class 10th, that if you drop up an object from a height, when it is at a height, it is having some potential energy. And when you drop it, the potential energy gets converted to the kinetic energy. At every point during the motion, the total mechanical energy, it remains constant. All right. So this derivation was there in class 9th. Maybe you have done. The total mechanical energy of a system, it does not change at all. So it is conserved quantity. It means it does not change with time, even though the potential energy or the kinetic energy may be changing. All right. So the conserved quantities are those quantities which are constant with time. They are not changing at all. One example I have taken, that is the example of total mechanical energy of the system. All right. So the kinetic energy and the potential energy, it changes with time, but the total mechanical energy, it remains constant with time. And the conserved quantities, it can be scalar quantities or they can be vector quantities. I hope that you have studied about the scalar and the vector quantities. Scalar energy is a scalar quantity. All right. Energy has only magnitude. It do not rely on the direction. It's a conserved quantity. And also there is one conserved quantity that is known as linear momentum, denoted by P. That is the product of mass and the velocity, P equal to mv. You have studied in class 9th, I think. And also the angular momentum of a body, it is also conserved quantity. It is denoted by L. You will be learning about this angular momentum in your chapter number 7. That is the rotational dynamics. All right. So in class 11th, we will be learning about this total angular momentum. And it is a conserved quantity, and also it is a vector. Vectors are those quantities which have a direction and a magnitude, as well as they obey the vectors law of addition. So we need to learn about the vectors a lot in class 11th. Vectors are the basic building block of physics. With the knowledge of vectors, we won't be able to proceed further. So I'll be taking a lot of classes on this vector. A lot of practices will be given to you on this vectors as well. The total linear momentum and the total angular momentum. Linear momentum, you know, that is the product of mass and the velocity. All right. The angular momentum we will be studying in class 11th, chapter number 7, and it is a conserved quantity as well as it is a vector. Energy is also a conserved quantity and it's a scalar. And based on our knowledge of conserved quantities, we derive a lot of concepts and we formulate out a lot of laws that we will be using during the course of the syllabus. All right. You see, this is an example that if the ball is at a height, it is having some potential energy, and when it comes down, the potential energy becomes 0 and it will be having kinetic energy. The potential energy gets changed to the kinetic energy, and the total mechanical energy, it remains the same. A falling ball to the ground has some potential energy and 0 kinetic energy. As soon as it touches the ground, the potential energy gets converted to kinetic energy, but the total mechanical energy, it remains the same. It means mechanical energy is a conserved quantity. It do not change with time. I hope it is clear. Let's come to the last topic of this lecture. That is the conservation laws. All right. So in physics, we are also having a lot of conservation laws. Okay. There are several principles that state that certain physical properties, which are measurable quantities, they do not change in the course of the time within an isolated physical system. All right. So there are some conservation laws, and these laws tell us this thing, that there lies a lot of properties in physics which are measurable quantities and they do not change with time. And based on these conservation laws, we derive out a lot of derivations, a lot of concepts we formulate out because of these conservation laws. If we are having a knowledge of these conservation laws, we will be using them to derive out a lot of concepts during the study of physics. All right. The important function of these conservation laws is that they make it possible to predict the macroscopic behavior of a system without having to consider the microscopic details. All right. So when we need to formulate certain predictions regarding some systems, what we need to do is that we need to have a knowledge of the conservation laws. And just by having the knowledge of the conservation laws, we can tell a lot about the system without going into the detail of its minute particles. We don't know to learn about how the electrons are behaving, how the protons are moving, how they are making some bonds with each other. We don't know to go in those details, but just by seeing and observing some broad details, we can formulate out certain concepts and laws regarding the physical process if we are having the knowledge of the conservation laws. I'm telling you again that these conservation laws, they help us to make certain predictions regarding a system without going in the detail of the microscopic details. All right. So we don't need to study the microscopic particles of the system. Just by observing the system on the whole, we can predict out certain observations. We can predict out certain laws. And there are these laws. It includes 4 laws are there. One is the law of conservation of energy. You know this thing, that energy can neither be created nor be destroyed. It can only be transformed from one form to another form, that we have studied in class 9th as well. All right. So we'll be dealing up with this also in our chapter number 6, law of conservation of energy. There is law of conservation of mass. In our chemistry part, we have studied about this, that the mass of the reactant and the mass of the product, it remains the same. All right. So law of conservation of mass. Also, we'll be dealing with one famous equation of Einstein, that is equal to mc square. That is, energy is equal to mass multiplied by square of the velocity. All right. And that law is also based on conservation of mass. You will be dealing with it in class 12. E equal to mc square, very famous law that Einstein has given, and you will be dealing it with in class 12th. Law of conservation of mass. We will be also studying about the law of conservation of linear momentum. All right. So we'll be deriving it in our laws of motion. We'll be deriving the law of conservation of linear momentum, and also we will be dealing with the law of conservation of angular momentum when we'll be learning about the angular momentum in the rotational dynamics, chapter number 7 of class 11th syllabus. Just an introduction to all these laws. You don't need to go in detail. We will be learning it about these laws later on in this chapter, the chapters to come in this syllabus. All right. So this is all that I want to discuss today. Thank you very much for joining. And still, if you are having some queries, you can mail me. I'll be solving it out. Also, I'll be just opening up the lines for you so that you will be asking me some questions. If you're having some doubt, I'll be giving you 10 minutes to ask your doubt. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.